Ben. Tonight we are going to be covering the Cobb family haunting, and I've got a little extra bonus surprise for everybody as well, which I've kept under wraps. You'll find out when we get there. So I always do that in a hurry, forget my notifications. Sorry, guys. So if you see me turning my thing around or looking down there, that's what I'm doing, is simply monitoring the chat. All comments, even if it's made elsewhere, it'll turn up in my group's chat. So that's where all my people go to watch the show. It's easier for everybody. So there, notifications are off. Rock on. So we're going to wait for everybody to give it a minute, wait for everyone to come on in and say hi, get settled in, get their drinks, popcorn, whatever their personal preference is, and we'll get started. And hopefully everyone out there is doing really well and had a great weekend. I know our hearts and prayers go out to Kentucky in light of the devastating tornadoes they have there. And I know that all of my Willows family, some may have been in kind of lived down close that way, but I don't think any of them live in Kentucky. But needless to say, I know all of our hearts go out to everybody who were impacted by that. So our prayers are with you, and hopefully things will, be better. And I know that's easier said than done, but we send our love. So we're going to wait for everybody to come in, and then we'll get to start. I just want to take a second to say that and throw it out there before this party gets started here. Let me see. Up there I am. Okay. Here I are. Hey, Sandy and Mary and Kim. How are you, my lovelies? There we go. Okay. Thank you, Sandy. Sandy is my lovely admin, for anybody who doesn't know. She goes and shares me out where she can, which is appreciated. And if everyone could like and share, it's appreciated. And I'm going to get finished getting my notes and stuff dug out here while we're waiting for others to come on in. Thank you, Mary. I appreciate you sharing too. Love you too, Sandy, of course. I always get the fingers too rounded at the bottom, but you get the gist. And Sandy too. Sandy 1, Sandy 2. And then depending if the other Sandys come, we can have up to 4 Sandys in chat. It's kind of crazy. I know who you are. What else we got so far? Hey, Stace, how are you, beautiful lady? Hope you are feeling better. Sorry, I'm going to double up on Sudafed here. I took it a couple hours ago, but obviously I'm still draining. And I know it's been like this back and forth weather we've been having up here too in New York. So take 1 second. I've been blowing my nose like mad all day. And I know normally it's too dry in the air, but now I'm like, I won't stop running. So how are you guys? Everybody good? And I'm going to get the sage blessing ready to go to here. Here. Where's everybody? I don't know. I even did a going live in 10-minute notice, both places as usual, in my personal page, but publicly, and then in the group. So it's always Monday. Well, I'm sorry that you're not better, but I'm glad that you're still here, and you can complain, Sandy. It's quite okay. You're allowed. You never unpack and stay there, so it's all good. So I'm gonna fire up here. I hate when my nose runs to the point where it's not quite enough to blow out, probably, but it's enough to just feel a sensation. It's a mess in there. Feeling a little better today. My head still hurt, but not as bad as it was. Thank you. Of course. And I'm glad you're feeling a bit better. So I'm going to go ahead and do this because it covers anybody who comes in anyway. So it doesn't matter if everyone's here when I do it or not. So I always do a sage blessing for everybody, just because you guys like me to. So with the sage, I cast a circle of protection around everyone who enters the show and watches and participates. And there's my daddy. And may they be safe and protected from any harm or ill will of any kind, and may it be returned to sender if they do try. And may that protection follow them into each and everyone's personal lives as well, and also cover everyone who is watching the replay afterward. There is my beautiful sister, Chris. Whoa, she made it in. That makes me happy. It is a good day. And my sister, Tanya. Boy, all my family's here. Natalie, too. Holy cow. You guys are like rocking it here tonight. That's awesome. I have missed you all. So I'm going to tell you guys this because it's a funny. I told Katie already, but you know what the hell. So earlier today, now a couple of you probably saw this play out. I know Natalie was impacted by it as well. So you remember who was like kind of like messaging on that post earlier today, Natalie? So that one and another gentleman was commenting all day on my show notice, to where I finally said, look, guys, I don't add strangers to my personal timeline because I've had stalkers before and I'm not going there again. So I won't add somebody unless I feel confident that they are who they are. And, you know, I count them as family. So I told both of these people that, you know, if you really are that interested, then come to my show, join my group, come to my show and participate in the live. And then, you know, if I can vibe you out there. And I really didn't think they'd take me up on it, but both came and joined the group. So we'll see if they show up. I told them that they have nothing to worry about being shy or, you know, made fun of or otherwise, as long as they behave themselves. If they dare hit on anybody in my chat, they're gone. I'm not putting up with that crap. And I let them know, no nonsense, no drama, none of that. So don't try it. You know, I've got a couch for sale. You sure you're not selling a couch? I need a couch. That is, for anybody who doesn't know, that is a long-running joke from way back in this show, where some troll guy kept coming in, and that's how he would interrupt the show, is he was looking to buy a couch, and you'd tell him like, nah, I think you're in the wrong place, giving them the benefit of the doubt, and they would just, well, I really need a couch. I just need a couch. No. So, hi, Crystalina, welcome. Exactly. No, you guys know I watch the chat. I don't miss too many of your comments going by. So if they start up, then they're going to get blocked. And simple as that. So I don't worry. Plus, in the group, Sandy also has the capability to block somebody. So not worried. You know, we don't tolerate nonsense in here. And y'all are family, and I told them that. So if they don't behave, then that's it. Bye-bye. But I didn't expect that they would follow through and actually join the group. You know, I thought that would kind of like deter them. No such luck. They called me on my bluff. Anyhow, so tonight we are going to be talking about the Cobb family haunting. You know, you can't clobber them. No, we don't encourage violence anyway, but a simple block is enough. You know, then they're gone. And I also have an added little bonus surprise that I tacked on to the second half of the show that I'm not telling you till we get there. You'll know, and I'll explain it when we get there. But it's, you know, just a little thank you to everybody. That's all. So why don't we go ahead and get started? And, you know, there's always stragglers who come in anyways late and all that, and they can always watch the replay if they missed any. Sent my sister Brenda the link to join. Okay, that would be awesome to have her here. Well, feel free to add her if you get the notice pop up, because I'm on Zoom technically, so I'm only watching the chat in group. So I read Cobbler. Yeah, no. That's why I made sure I told them that, like I said, I kind of called their bluff, but said, one guy's like, oh, I'm shy. Well, you weren't too shy to approach a strange woman in a comment section. So hence, you can participate with my family and they can size you up. And there's Sandy number 3. So why don't we go ahead and get started? And again, there's always stragglers who come in anyway, so that's okay. Yeah, Sandy, I know. It's kind of like we just let that one go. All right, so the Cobb family haunting, aka Danny's bed. And it was frustrating me last night because, okay, so when I first came upon this topic, I was in the middle of something else and it was playing kind of in the background noise type of thing. You know how you put something on and you're just doing something else, but it's just background noise. And it caught my ear and I just jotted it on a like a piece of scrap paper off to the side, and that was it, and left it there until I could add it into the notebook. And so I'm going through, like, I spent like an hour trying to find this topic online. I'm like, I know I heard it and it talked about, so it's got to be somewhere. Well, then I came upon its alternate name, Danny's bed, and then I was like, oh, that's right, and that's what everything is under pertaining to the story. So made it a lot easier once I had that. How you doing, Sandy? Welcome, welcome. So Danny's bed. So now this story, it comes from, there is a book that was written by the same title, I believe, um, based off this true story, and from the journals of the father in the story. He kept journals on everything throughout the whole experience, and then he went on to write a book based on his journal entries, just to kind of set it up here. So that's the perspective it comes from, and I don't obviously have the book on hand. I mean, it's a shorter book. It's like, I think maybe like 100 pages. I mean, it's a good story and it's very interesting, but I don't have it obviously, and I can't get it anywhere that short a notice. But needless to say, I got enough synapses put together from different sources that it's going to work. So, all right. So the backstory of this is, so the father who wrote the book, his name is Al Cobb, and he is from Savannah, Georgia. So he bought this antique bed going back into 1998. He had twin sons, and he bought this bed for one of them, whose name was Jason, and he was 14 at the time he got the bed. And the son was thrilled, like he just loved the bed and thought it was an amazing gift, and was so happy and excited to have it. And so, by all accounts, it should have been good to go from there, right? Well, of course not, or I wouldn't be covering it as a story, right? Go figure. So, after the third night of Jason, the child, sleeping in the bed, again, he's 14, so young adult, we'll call him that, young adult. After the third night he slept in the bed, Jason was awoken by what he described as two invisible elbows pressing on his pillow with a cold breath on his neck. Creep factor 10, right? He told his parents what happened, which of course they just dismissed as a bad dream. Day 4. On the 4th day of him sleeping in this bed, he just kind of, oh, maybe they're right, and maybe it was just a bad dream. I know what I experienced, but go back to bed. 4th day. So after the bed had been in the home, Jason went into his room and he noticed a picture of his grandfather was laid face down on the table from where he normally had it. He, thought that was curious, of course, as any one of us would if we found one of our pictures knocked over. But like us, you don't think twice about something like that. Something knocked it over, you logic it away. So he set it back up, right? Didn't think anything more about it and went on his way with his day. Day 5. This time it was getting a bit more dramatic in things. So, hey, Marianne. The following day, Jason again entered his room and found again that his grandfather's picture this time wasn't just knocked over, it got moved. So this time, my phone and notebook keep freezing up, so put you on TV. Ooh, I'm on TV. Anytime I'll make it on TV, So how you doing, Marianne? So this time when he watched, and again, what happened was much more dramatic than it had previously been. And he found his grandfather's picture in the middle of his bed, and it was surrounded by various objects that were from all different places in his room. And, he didn't do it. And he knows that his siblings, nobody would come in and do that with the picture of his grandfather. I guess that's the only way I'm going to be TV famous, It's okay. So I don't do it for those reasons anyway. We know, so it's all good. But hey, I can say I was on TV. There we go. So he found his grandfather's picture in the middle of his bed, surrounded by various objects from all over his room. What the hell's going on? It would stop you in a track. Jason describes it. Now, this is pre-cell phone days, so you can just go take a picture of it. But he described that it was in a circular shape of the objects, meaning going around the picture. Were the following items. So these were all items from his room. He had a conch shell, a dinosaur made from seashells, a plaster casting of a bird, and 2 Beanie Babies. Remember those little stuffed animals, Beanie Babies? So apparently he had a couple of them of whatever kind, but they were also in this circle going around his grandfather's picture. Jason, of course, freaked out like any 14-year-old kid would, and he ran to tell his folks. And soon the entire family was clustered in his room around his bed, staring in disbelief, of course, over what they were seeing and trying to figure out what could have possibly caused it. I still have some put away that my daughter had when she was little, just to kind of keep them safe and protected. But yeah, got like a few of them that she was given as gifts when she was like a toddler or whatever. So Jason's father, Al Cobb, he suspected that it was a poltergeist might be behind this. And if you remember, in the past, we've done stories on poltergeists and what they are. It's German for noisy ghost. I'm good on my end, Crystalina. Of course, if I'm frozen, you won't know that. So I guess I gotta let chat answer that. So his father suspected it might be a poltergeist, which is a noisy, disruptive spirit. And he was, of course, upset by it. Like, where did this come from? So Al Cobb asked out loud, do we have a Casper here? And, of course, he didn't get any answer. And so Al went on to ask the spirit for its name and age, and again, got no audible response that he could hear. And, the average people back then didn't know about EVPs or how to capture them. So it just was noticing an absence of an answer. So Al got an idea. He got the idea that he would basically send everybody out of the room, and he gathered writing paper and a few crayons, and he put them on the bed, in the middle of the bed, and kind of scooted all the stuff aside that had moved to the bed. And hopefully you can hear okay now, Crystalina. And if you can't, you won't hear me saying you hopefully can. So he put the paper and the crayons in the middle of the bed, and he made everyone leave for about 15 minutes and asked again, like, please tell us your name and how old you are. So after 15 minutes, they go back in the room, and on the paper he put on the bed was written the word Danny and the number 7. Now, I have heard of other hauntings where that allegedly happened, except on different surfaces and stuff, but where that was the only way that could get it to communicate was everybody exiting the room, and there was no other entrance in and out as far as like the logic behind, oh, well, somebody else snuck in and did it or something. It's closed rooms. And so I think the other one I'm thinking of was on a bathroom mirror that someone wrote it in like lipstick, that they would leave the tube of lipstick out and then have to leave the room. Before, if they stayed in the room, nothing happened. But if they left and came back in, there would be a message written out. And so that's what he did. So Danny had basically, I guess, gone on to write in a number of different sessions. And Danny's mom, he said, had died in that bed back in 1899. Danny said he wanted to stay close to the bed because it made him feel close to his mom. He was a 7-year-old boy when his mom died, or when he died anyway. We don't know exactly how old he was when she died, but safe to say probably was near the same time, possibly. So he also made it clear that he would not accept anyone sleeping on as he considered it to be. And hence where he started kind of messing with Jason, like, get out of my mom's bed. So Jason, being a 14-year-old boy, got the idea for an experiment. So he was curious. So although he stopped sleeping in the bed, of course, because he was too spooked out. And he decided to see what would happen to him if he should happen just to lay down on the bed randomly, not necessarily spending the night in it, but just laying down on it for a few minutes, and seeing what happened and how Danny felt about it. Nothing happened while he was laying down, but there's always a but. Upon standing up, there was a terracotta wall hanging. I don't know what it looked like, but doesn't matter. No, it's terracotta wall hanging, as it was described to be, that it flew off the wall, just missed him, and it crashed into his closet door. Well, I guess that was a good indicator as to how Danny felt about it. Hey, Deb, how are you, love? This is the first show, like many of you have made in a long time. I've missed some of you guys, like Natalie and Crystalina's first show, but Chris, happy to have everybody. So from there, after this whole throw something at the poor kid and smashed into the closet door, of course, he got the heck out of the room. Danny would not stay in the room. Some people think that a spirit cannot, that they're localized to one space and one space only. They can travel, of course they can. They can go wherever they choose to. And so Danny started to, because he was upset that, he just wanted to be left alone, basically. Oh, same here, Natalie. I'm happy to have you. Of course, I missed you. So Danny started traveling throughout the house, causing mischief. And so the family would experience kitchen drawers opening and closing on their own, furniture being moved, kitchen chairs just being flipped over as if someone just tossed them over. So it was escalating. And then they found out that Danny was not alone. He got friends, apparently. So all throughout this, Jason began reporting that he became receptive to the activity and started experiencing it. Now, what I thought at this point in the research was that through the experiences and being the age that he was at, remember he was 14 then, that it was causing his gifts to kind of become activated. And so he was starting to really sense and experience the different things happening in the house, who was behind it, the energy, associate the energies with the being, and so forth. So Jason's is the one, the boy who started reporting that there were several visitors, quote unquote, to their home. One of them, he said, was called Uncle Sam. Now, Uncle Sam told Jason that his daughter was actually buried under the Cobb family home and that he was there to claim her. Now, any soul being I've encountered as a psychic medium, especially if they're coming from the other side, they don't do that where they come and claim somebody like that. But this is from Jason's perspective, not mine. So that was what Jason said that he was told from Uncle Sam. And then there was also a girl named Gracie. And Gracie, now in the show reminder notice today, the photos, there's three of them, I think three of them that I posted. One of them is, there was a like a ghost boy in the picture type of thing in front of a couch. And that was thought to be Danny's spirit. That was captured on film. And the second one was looks like a little girl's gravesite. And that was Gracie. Gracie was identified by Jason as Gracie Watson, which there was and is an actual gravestone in their local cemetery for a Gracie Watson who died at a very young age. Let me see. So Gracie Watson is actually buried in the Bonaventure Cemetery in Savannah, Georgia. So again, that's her gravesite in the show reminder notice. So if nobody saw it pre-show, then you can always go back and look after we get done or what have you. It's there. So the family then went on to bring in paranormal investigators in which that can make activity worse depending if the person knows what they're doing or not. It can kind of rile up the activity. But in this case, they brought a parapsychologist. Now, a parapsychologist is a psychologist who, it's not that they disbelieve in paranormal activity. However, they try to use logic to find every other reason that of what it could be besides finally settling on it being paranormal activity. So it's very scientific in nature, and they're more likely to well, the ones I've seen in action anyway, can get kind of ignorant about it to where it's very obviously not what they are saying it is. And they just write it off as that because they don't want to come out and admit that it is paranormal in nature. But most of them try to be fair, I guess. So this gentleman who came in, who was the parapsychologist, his name was Andrew Nichols, and he was the one who came in to investigate the case. Now, as one knows, like, they go around, they test for electromagnetic fields, which is known to have, like, some people are really sensitive to electromagnetic fields. And a lot of times that's really, really high readings around, say, a fuse box on the wall, electrical wiring in the floors, like any appliances, things like that can put up really high levels, which can, in some people, impact them as far as causing dizziness, even in some cases like hallucinations, etc., which some people think that that could be a reasoning where some people claim paranormal activity, when that, I think it should be ruled out, because for some people who are sensitive to it, it can cause those effects. So yes, you got to rule out that in those areas of the haunting, quote unquote, that it's not impacting the person and it's not coming from that. So he did those types of things. So Nichols found that there was indeed a very strong electromagnetic field that's in the wall of Jason's room, caused by a configuration of wiring and etc. that was in the wall. And that he kind of thought that that was, like, the antique bed was responsible for the activity, which was correct. He also thought that all the electromagnetic readings were responsible for opening up Jason's psychic abilities to allow the paranormal activity to be known. Now, I'm curious if it had been reversed to where it was a girl who was experiencing it, if it would have had a different outcome, because there is a high rate of occurrence between poltergeist activity happening with girls who are entering puberty. It's just kind of something that I was thinking about last night in doing the research. So he did think that that was what was behind it. The antique bed was responsible for the paranormal activity, but also that the EMF field was responsible for kind of ramping up the activity, in addition to opening Jason's gifts to be able to perceive that Uncle Sam and the little girl Gracie in the home as well. Now, Al did go on, like I said, to write a book from his journal, and it was called Danny's Bed. I couldn't find any more information on this story besides the book, because of course, they're not going to go full on and do a blow by blow, page by page presentation of the story if it is in book form, because the person wants to be able to sell books. So the one I got, I think was actually quite comprehensive considering, and I think it was somebody who was writing it as if they were giving a book review. So I lucked out on having that much information, because a lot of times you don't get that. So that is what is known without having read the entire book about Danny's Bed. So, because that is the case, and I was only up to page 8 of my notes, which for a typical show, we have at least 20 to 25 pages of notes, there was a ways to go, and that would have been a mighty short show indeed. So here's where the bonus I'm giving you guys is because of the topic. Rather than tanking the topic altogether, we're going to just add to it. So this we covered briefly before, but I think it was when I had my other show, Willows Wisp, in the Hauntings group, is best that I could find. I have all my notebooks, of course, and was going back through it thinking I know I've touched on this before, but I think it's been mentioned in passing before in Willow's Bend, but I don't think it was an actual show all by itself because I couldn't find any notes on it. So I don't think that was the case. So I think it was just a touched on as part of another show in here. So I'm throwing it in here to represent it, except a little bit more detail than what it was originally. So I present to you the Snedeker Family Haunting, i.e., also called the Haunting in Connecticut story. Now I know Stacy, she lives not too far from there. She knows exactly which story this is about. And so a lot of you guys probably are also aware, or you watched the movie if nothing else. So we're going to talk about the real life story behind that movie. Surprise! Oh, you're just saying hi to everybody. Okay. All right. So the family behind the Haunting in Connecticut movie is called the Snedeker Family. And so what happened here? All right. So back in the late 1980s, this case was investigated, or one of the ones that was investigated, by Ed and Lorraine Warren. Now, I've kind of talked somewhat about them before, and I think we even did a show on them once upon a time. And I give all the props in the world to Ed and Lorraine, both as people, but also they really put the topic of paranormal activity out in the public and brought it up to awareness, and were kind of teaching everybody about it. I don't think I saw that. I've heard of the documentary, Nancy, but I didn't see it, but I did see the movie. What Ed and Lorraine were really good at is the publicity side of it more than anything else, of talking to the media about what had happened. And, they also went around, teaching about the topic of paranormal activity in different colleges, basically whoever would have them, talk shows on TV, etc., interviews for newspapers, magazines. They got the topic of spirit activity happening here on our plane of existence out into the media, to the mainstream public. And I give them full props for that. Now, that said, I've heard a lot of stories, read a lot of stories, done a lot of investigating research-wise about them and their activity, their involvement in different cases. It doesn't seem like they've been super effective as investigators based on what I've read about. And I could be wrong. So I'm going to throw that out there. So don't anyone get mad at me about it. But yes, it's like they were founders of the topic, like the mother and father of the topic for public awareness of it. Those who I've read about that had them involved, there wasn't much coming out from the people themselves saying, oh, thank God they came and they fixed it all for us, or, they helped save the day type of thing. I've never read anything like that. Kind of the opposite is that when kind of asked to show documentation or evidence backing up their claims pertaining to, this exorcism, we had to do an exorcism while in there, or we experienced this, and this, you get the same impressions as Natalie. Yes. No, they were good people. And that's why I threw that out first, Nancy, that I have all the respect in the world for them. And they were, a loving couple who were very dedicated to each other and hugely supportive to one another for most of their lives. They were lifelong partners and so forth. But when pressed for backup documentation saying, okay, so can you show us something like any photographic evidence, or I don't know, movie clips or something saying this got done or this happened, and they never were able to really come up with or present anything. Hi, beautiful Ronnie. How are you, lady? Welcome. They were never, and if anything, I guess, apparently, and I've never seen these interviews myself, but it's been reported on, that, lots of times when when Ed would be being interviewed, he could get kind of defensive when kind of called out on his involvement in the case or asked for supporting evidence. It kind of, people interpreted the behavior as, well, he said it is so, and so it is so, without him really coming forward with anything to back it up. But again, I give him all the props as kind of being the mother and father of the information, of the topic, because before you didn't talk about that stuff. People were so worried about being thought of as crazy, and many still are because they care what people think. But they were the first ones to bring it to the public eye, and I give them all the respect for that. I am doing very well, Ronnie. Thank you, and I hope you are doing the same, my dear. So, in 1986, Carmen and Al Snedeker, got another Al in this story, it's a double Al night here. They were both driving long distance to get from their home in upstate New York to get their, like, basically medical treatment for their son who had Hodgkin's disease, which is a form of cancer, very difficult to manage, long distance traveling to get them the treatment. And it took its toll on the family, both emotionally and financially. It's hard enough to go through something, see your child go through something like that. But to add the strain of having to drive, 8-10 hours each way to get help that you need for your child, and the cost involved, wear and tear in your car, that's a lot. So they decided to basically, find a new place to live, to make an already difficult situation at least a little bit easier by moving closer to where their son got his treatment at. Now, their son's name was Philip in real life. I don't remember if his name was the same in the movie or not, but in real life it was Philip. So they decided to move closer to the medical center for help to lower the stress of the situation, at least that much. So this is where they found an apartment to rent in a large colonial house made into a duplex in Connecticut. Now, that is the third picture that was in the event notice reminder that I posted today. That great big white house, this was the actual house that this took place in. So there's a visual on that if you want to take a look. It's just a really nice house. So you would never guess something like that happen outwardly, of course. So from my understanding, there was another at least one person who lived upstairs from them, and then they had like the rest of the house, the ground floor and the basement area. So this house was big enough for their family and their nieces to move in if they converted the basement into 2 rooms for their kids. And it was here, while doing that renovation, that Al had found mortuary equipment, including coffin handles. There was a chain and pulley. Yeah, I don't remember his name in the movie either. I know who played him and what he looked like, but I don't remember what name they gave him. And there was a book written about this, but it was, I think names were changed to protect the kids or something. So go kid, gotta go home. Okay. Good night, Sandy. Thanks for popping in. So Al, when renovating the bedroom or the basement to turn it into 2 separate bedrooms for his sons, he found coffin handles. There was a chain and pulley coffin lifting mechanism, and a drainage pit for, when they're doing the whole procedure to embalm someone. They drain all the blood from the body. So it was to drain, like a drainage ditch for that, for the blood to be leaving the house from the basement floor, essentially, and the table that they do the work on. So he found these things. And I guess there may have even still been like dried traces of blood there. So it turned out that at one time, the home had been a funeral home for many decades before they moved in. And they tried not to think about it, and they continued the renovation for their 2 sons. So let's talk about Philip for a second. Now, in the movie, he's portrayed a certain way, but it's not exactly as their reports of what happened with him turned out and were played out. They left some stuff out for the movie or changed certain things, of course. But why do you think that stuff wasn't removed prior to renting? I think maybe it was looked at as it was down in the basement, and kind of like, most people just store stuff down there. So why would it matter? I don't think that it was as much stuff as what was shown in the movie like there was. I mean, in the movie, they made it look like the entire embalming room was left intact. that wasn't the case. He just found certain artifacts left over from there. So like most of it had been moved out. But yeah, there was some stuff there that showed that it had been used as a mortuary. Yeah, definitely creepy. Absolutely. It was, well, that was what Sandy, the separate room part, that's what Father Al was doing, was making it be a separate room by dividing the basement space into two rooms so that the kids could, each have their own room space. Or at least the boys could be in one room and the girls in another. Because again, they had their nieces living with them as well. So extended family stayed there. So he was dividing the space into two rooms. And that's when he found the stuff. So, sorry, my nose is itching. So they just tried not to think about it and continued on with the renovations for their two sons. Now, Philip. Now, from his very first night sleeping in his new room in the basement, he began hearing what he reported to be strange voices and odd sounds, like, kind of disgruntled sounds. He even described seeing shadow figures like a man in a pinstripe suit with white hair who would stare at him while he was sleeping. Creep factor number 9. Philip became so afraid that he even began begging to stay at the hospital where he got his treatment done. Like, I don't want to go home, and I'd rather stay at the hospital than go home, because he was so creeped out. And of course, his mother wouldn't let him do that. So, hey, we move closer so we don't have to do that. We're going home. In the movie, I know they are portrayed as being like a pretty devout Catholic family. In my research, like the actual true story, that wasn't mentioned at all, of that being their faith or, being devout or not. It really just more talked about like the experiences and stuff compared to what was shown in the movie for it. So we'll continue on. So his parents dismissed his claims of all the different activity he was experiencing, no matter how much he tried in like insisting, hey, no, I'm not lying, I'm not making it up, I'm telling you the truth, this is what I heard, this is what I saw. They minimized it like most parents do in an attempt to not have their kids feel afraid, but it makes a kid feel not heard also. So they suspected that what he was experiencing could have possibly, hey Lori, welcome, that it could have possibly been hallucinations that were a side effect of his treatment. So I guess he used to get a treatment called Cobalt Therapy. And this is an actual mineral, and it's used to repair the myelin that surrounds your nerves, can help work on fixing anemia, etc. But has to be given in very specific doses. So I'm only guessing that in being used to treat cancer, it might be used in bigger levels. I'm not sure, but at any rate, that's what his parents suspected were behind the hallucinations, or that it was causing hallucinations for him to experience these things. And again, minimized it and just kind of blew him off. Doesn't mean they stopped for the kid, though. So after moving into the basement, it is said that Philip's personality also began to drastically change. And again, the way it's shown of his transformation isn't quite how it happened in their reports of it. Some of it was, of course, ramped up for Hollywood and sales of the movie, but others were, like he didn't do all the drawing on his skin and stuff of the different symbols and things. There was no reports of that in anything I found on research. So I don't think it went that far, but there was a definite taste change in how he, the Cobalt Therapy was the only thing I came across in the research. So whether there, that was part of it, they could have even used that as a reason. I don't see you yet. Oh, there you are, Karen. Yeah, you're always working during the show, and I'm used to it. No biggie. That's why we got a replay, right? So after moving into the basement, it said that Philip's personality began to drastically change. Both his interests and his tastes in whatever, clothing, style, music, all that stuff changed. He began wearing leather, of all things. He also developed a strong interest in the occult. And at one point, he became violent with his behavior. So his family decided to send him away for a psychiatric evaluation. They were concerned, of course. And if everything you are trying to do for a kid isn't working, you do reach a point where you're like, I got nothing left and I don't know how to process or proceed with this. I'm out of my element. We need help. So that's the point they got to with this. They didn't know how to handle all that. Some of it could be attributed to rebellious behavior, of course, of a normal teenage boy, but some of it was way, way opposite of how he normally was. So he'd even broken into his neighbor's house at one point, and he had to fit 8 hours of work into 3 today. Oh, lovely. But that was exciting. So I guess he also at one point broke into his neighbor's house to steal a gun and he wanted to use it to shoot his stepfather Al with. Al was not biological dad. And I came across no mention of bio dad's involvement with the family of the kids. So he wanted, I don't know, it didn't say why he wanted to shoot Al, just that was what he was trying to do in trying to steal the gun. He also allegedly assaulted his female cousin and at one point tried to rape her, which they had always been like the best of friends growing up, and there was none of that between them. And he wouldn't have crossed that boundary line, it was thought normally. And yet it, once they moved in the house, everything changed. So the rest of the family, once Philip was out of the house, whatever resided there turned its attention to the rest of the family. Stiff drink made too, Karen. So the other incidences that were reported by the family once Philip was gone out of the house. So Mom Carmen, she reported that one time when mopping the floor, and this was portrayed in the movie, that the water she was using to mop with turned blood red right before her eyes. Carmen and Al both reported that their bed shook violently and also said at times it vibrated with almost a sort of heartbeat sensation. And it was said that numerous others had experienced that heartbeat sensation on other furniture, like sitting on the couch in the living room, that type of thing. So it was at least backed up, I guess, by others. Electrical sockets and bulbs would have unnatural glowing to them. Even once the bulbs got removed from the sockets, I guess the bulbs allegedly still continued to glow. Random foul odors of rotten meat and human fecal matter smells would often be smelled throughout the home in different places. And these experiences continued for years, even after they which eventually did go on to turn violent. Like some of the ones happened prior to Philip leaving, but even when things first started out, it wasn't really violent in nature, but it increased and escalated from there. Pretty yucky. So Carmen had reported at one point she had been in the shower and, quote, the curtain very quickly wrapped around me and I couldn't push it away. Her only thought was that, quote, this thing was trying to kill her, end quote. Her other family members also had experiences too. Now their niece had claimed that disembodied hands would sometimes touch her sexually, and at one point that she got raped by the entity. And now this is also kind of reminiscent of the book titled The Entity. I think it had Barbara Hershey in the movie version of it, but that type of stuff went on in there. And there have been other reports of someone being violated sexually by different beings. I think it's possible, why not? If they can manifest their energy to move things with and cause a ruckus in the house, well, why not touch somebody the wrong way? So Carmen said that she would hear the entity laughing as it it would be, she'd wake up to it, molesting her chest, and then would hear the sound kind of make its way out from her shirt area across the room towards the window, and would hear it laughing kind of maniacally. Other families also reported that sexual assault as well, And both Carmen and Al reported being disturbed in bed by an unearthly atmosphere in their bed. Both reported hearing 1930s mood music playing, which I'm not sure what that sounds like, but that's what the research called it, in the background, and that several times it proceeded either where one of them or both of them would get assaulted. Both claimed to have been raped several times by whatever was behind this. Carmen reported once that as her and her niece tried to run away from the house because of the stuff that was happening in the moment, that they were running down the street and her niece Kelly was allegedly sodomized, which is, for those who don't know, forcible anal intercourse. Yeah, it was from the big band era, but I'm not sure what is considered to be mood music back then. I'm sure it wasn't Boom Chicka Wow Wow. But what exactly it was, I don't know. Didn't identify that song names. It just said mood music. So apparently that Carmen was reporting that her niece Kelly was being sodomized while running down the street. That was also part of the question, Lori, is why would they stay? And we're going to get to that in a minute. I think it was a variety of reasons. So Eden, I guess, well, I'm going to say it now. So Carmen basically was worried that, even if they left, the activity would follow them. So rather than, have ghosts will travel, and they stayed in the same place. It was affordable for one, and it didn't start out being violent right away. That took a couple years of being there before it escalated to that. Yes, any one of us, if we started getting sexually attacked, game over, we'd find a way to move out, but they didn't for whatever reason. So we don't know anything more than that finances were tight and difficult. So time tag, what do you mean, Sandy? So in comes Ed and Lorraine's involvement into the story. Ed and Lorraine and other investigators. Oh, you saw something go across the screen. Can you note what time it says on your end, so I can always go back and watch it? Crystalina says, that just gave me chills. I had an experience of being held down as a child while I thought 20s or 30s music played in my room. I didn't realize at the time that's what kind of music it was. See more? Till I got older. Wow. I'm sorry you had to go through that. That must have been terrifying, especially as a child. So Ed and Lorraine got involved at this point, and the investigators spent a total of 9 weeks in the home with the family. Well, I'm sorry it triggered anything for you. Obviously, I had no idea, or else I would have given a warning. But I'm sorry you experienced that. That's why I said, is I think that stuff is possible. I've heard many reports of that before. Got kicked out and didn't see the thingy. 22 minutes in. Let me write it down. I mean, there have been, well, at least one other time. People tell me all the time they see things go by like orbs, and I don't see them when I'm talking because my gifts are off and I don't sense that stuff. They come and go, of course. We've talked about that before. But there was only one time somebody else sent me a timestamp, and I sure enough saw it was right by. So Ed and Lorraine spent a total of 9 weeks in the home with the family, along with other investigators, like an investigative team that they brought with them. And when asked to describe the haunting on a 1 to 10 scale, the Warrens rated it at least as a 9. Yeah, I'll check it out after we're done with the show. So they concluded that the house was infested with demons, and the Warrens had arranged for the house to have an exorcism, which was, I believe, portrayed in the movie. It's been a while since I've seen it, but I think they showed that. So the aftermath of all that exorcism and all that stuff happening. So after the home was cleansed, the Snedekers did then move to another home, and they were involved in the writing of the book, The Haunting in Connecticut. Oh, you experienced that too, Marianne? I'm sorry you went through it too. So they were involved in the writing of the book The Haunting in Connecticut, and if anyone should be happen to be interested in the book, I saw like an ad on the page I was using for research that it is currently available on Amazon for $3.99. So thought I'd throw that out there. um, they also participated in TV movies, documentaries, Nancy, and inspired the movie of a hunting by the same name, Hunting in Connecticut. And looking at their narrative, including the above information of all the media, interviews, documentaries, movies, etc., um, the story is at times, according to the author, that it's confusing and muddled in the telling of the details, and that it's not always consistent in how it's talked about by the different family members. So the only thing I can consider to give it a benefit of the doubt would be so much activity happening like all the time or quite regularly. That would be difficult over a course of years unless you are documenting it in a moment, like keeping a journal of it or something. To put it on a timeline of events, that would be hard to keep in a linear timeline. Again, unless you are intentionally keeping a written record of it, which it did. I've never seen anywhere where they were. So yeah, you're going to get stuff mixed up in your head and so forth. So giving them the benefit of the doubt, I think that was what was behind that. But it got reported about many times that, trying to follow their telling of it, that the stories would change, not significantly, but enough to where it'd be kind of like, wait, what? Didn't you say this before in this interview? And now it's this, that type of stuff. And that the only absolute consistent thing was about Philip's illness. So, like I said, that's kind of what my interpretation is. They were just regular, everyday working class people. And if also that they were a devout Catholic family, then that type of stuff you're going to automatically think it's demonic in nature. But at the same time, many try to just pretend it's not happening, to ignore it. So I couldn't sleep in my room without a light on for years after. My dad was always like, it must have been a bad dream, but I know it wasn't. Yeah, I mean, I believe you. I have had experiences as a child that were quite frightening, and so I don't doubt that you did experience it. And I know skeptics always say, oh, sleep paralysis, but when you're more awake than not, or if you are wide awake versus in that in-between place that sleep paralysis happens in. If you're emotional, would you remember everything that happened right after? Well, that's what I'm saying, Nancy. Like, in terms of they were just everyday regular people who experienced such a volume of activity. I bet it would be difficult to keep a straight record of everything that happened. So, keeping it in chronological order, if there was no written record kept of it, you're going to get a little fuzzy on all the details here and there. Doesn't mean it didn't happen. We have no validation 100% that it did, but I always give benefit of the doubt. So Karen said, I had scary moments as a child. Now I dangle my feet from my bed and wish the motherfucker would mess with you. I could see you doing that. It would be a huge book over the timeline of when, how long they lived there for. I didn't hear a specific dates that they, like from when they moved in, from when they moved out, how long a period of time it was, just that it was, pretty extensive period of time that went on. So, and I know personally, I've been in a situation where money is so tight, like there is no money to move. It's a costly process to be able to up and move. You got to pay, first and last month's rent, and oftentimes movers to help move your stuff and transportation for it and all that. It's costly. So a lot of working class families don't just have that laying around anywhere to access when they choose. So, and especially if most of their resources have been going into making sure their son had what he needed medically, well, that would make things even tighter for the family. How many shadow people in Colorado? Derek stopped sleeping in the bedroom with me. They freaked him out. I dingled this place is uber clean. Good. They are, and that's where I always give the benefit of the doubt. I wasn't there to say it didn't happen empirically, and just because my personal beliefs may not align with somebody else's doesn't mean something didn't happen automatically without evidence that it didn't. So who am I to say it didn't? I wasn't there. So they did go on to move. Sorry, back up. They definitely wanted to move to Southington, Connecticut to be closer to Philip's treatment. That part was accurate as well, but it's unknown if they knew that the home that they had been in during where all this stuff took place, if it had been a cremation, like a funeral home before that. The landlord claims they did know. The landlord's name was Daryl Kern, and he said the whole thing was a hoax. Of course, he's going to say that as a landlord because he wants to be able to rent the place out for more than just people who are curious and kind of have a morbid sense of curiosity and renting it, and then just to experience something and then bailing or having it become a three-ring circus there. Of course, who wants that? So he's going to say that. No. Again, I don't have evidence that it was a hoax or it wasn't, so I'm not even going to try taking a stance on that. So I leave that for anybody who has read up on it, what have you, for you to interpret it. But my kids went through a lot also. My son was bruised. We all seen the same woman. Yeah, I definitely, obviously, as a medium, I have that belief in otherworldly beings and interdimensional beings and all that. But so I'm not going to judge them on them saying what they saw and experienced, because I know that stuff exists from my perspective. So I wouldn't be the one to question them. But, skeptics, I think most people who are hardcore skeptics are really ultimately afraid of it. And so it's easier for them to shut it down and say it doesn't exist at all, rather than stretch out their fear to consider it the reality of it, is my interpretation. And oftentimes those who are hardcore skeptics, when they don't tend to experience quite as much as those who have a belief in it or whose minds are changed about it through experiencing it. They don't seem to experience quite as much. It's either that or they're just not admitting that they're experiencing stuff too out of fear. Derek was skeptical until he met my ass. I've experienced that in relationships before too, where they kind of have to concede after a while that you're not quite as fruitcakey as you appeared initially. So the landlord said that it was all a hoax, and he and his neighbors had stated openly on TV that there was no problem until they got behind in their rent, insinuating that because they got behind in the rent, they concocted this as a story, and that's when all of a sudden it became a problem. Poop on them, they don't know the history of the house. Well, the landlord would, but Exactly, Karen. We kind of shake things up in people's worlds, and I'm the same way. If you're going to be with me and personally, then you got to be able to accept that about me, that this is who I am, and this is what I do, and this is how I use my gifts, and this is my belief system. You don't have to agree with it or believe in it, but just know that about me and keep your opinions to yourself if you disagree. At least have mutual respect that your beliefs are different than mine, and hey, cool, but you're still allowed to have them. But yeah, we usually show them through things we're doing or having happen around us that, yeah, there's something to it. So yeah, the neighbor and the landlord were saying that nothing started being reported as being a problem until they got behind on their rent. They were using that as an excuse to get out of the place and just kind of run out on the rent. Stacy said, my husband was very skeptical until he had his paranormal experience. He was so scared he will not talk about it. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying, is that I think that's what's behind hardcore skepticism is fear. Fear is a powerful tool, and it's something that you have to choose not to have, or that you're going to just let run wild. And out of fear, many say, yeah, that's just nonsense, that's not happening, and they turn a blind eye. They really do put the blinders on to it, even though it's happening around them and stuff, or it may be happening to them. They still will try to find or excuse it away. When landlord found out, all right, I'm done talking of this. Yeah. Well, they did find evidence of it having been a funeral home after shortly after moving in, Lori. So, I mean, and it was a long running funeral home too. So you get a wide variety of people through for, funerals and stuff. At work, we teach the kiddos daily to respect others' opinions and ways. Exactly. And that's how I try to conduct my life as well. That you don't have to agree with me, but show respect, the same respect I give you, please give it back. That you're entitled to your own beliefs, and I'm not here to change yours one way or the other, but I'm not going to judge it on it either. So don't try coming at me because I give you that respect. So it's all about boundaries. So their upstairs neighbor in the duplex that they, like I said, it was like the upstairs was rented out to somebody else, and they had the ground floor, and the basement is, I think, the setup of it. And again, in the show reminder notice, there is a picture of the actual home in there. So their upstairs neighbor in the duplex who shared the home with them said that they never experienced anything. Her name was Sandy, was also a real estate agent who said that she's the one who made them aware of the property, and that she definitely, absolutely did tell them that it had been a funeral home at the time of viewing it. They even said that there was still like the sign, I think in the corner of the yard or something, with the funeral home's name on it. But the Snedekers say that it was covered up by plywood and not readable. So, again, we weren't there. Tonka truck. The house we bought at the bathroom totally came from the morgue. The tub was where they rinsed the bodies off and kept this for me for a while. But then my husband got up the bathroom to redo it, and it seemed like my anxiety level was through the roof. Not when you're sensitive to that energy, and it was triggering your sixth sense radar, basically. And if somebody was attached to that tub for whatever reason, or stayed in the bathroom having, any renovation stuff happen, is kind of a known instigator to increase activity happening in an area. So it happens. So everybody said that they were made aware it had been a funeral home. The Snedekers deny it and said no, they had no clue, or else they probably wouldn't have decided to rent it. The gentleman who wrote the book, The Haunting in Connecticut, his name was Ray Garton, just like my name, except with an A in the beginning, Garton. He was commissioned by the Warrens to document the Snedekers' experiences in the book titled In a Dark Place. Sorry about that. And he had reported how difficult that it was in trying to extract a said narrative and timeline from the Snedekers was nigh on impossible. And again, I kind of think it was just the volume of the activity that would be hard to keep straight. He said that it was complicated due to also there being alcohol and drug addiction and illness in the family to work around as well. Philip, the boy who had gotten placed out of home in a psychiatric center, well, it was like a juvenile detention center, I think, based off of him having stolen his neighbor's gun with the intention of shooting his stepfather. He got placed there, and then they did psych evals on him. So Philip later admitted to having performed sexually inappropriate acts habitually at night, including being caught having fondled his cousins, and that he had been actually interviewed by police for that. So it was okay. So I guess it was after that admission, that was when he got placed in the juvie center. And then he was diagnosed as being schizophrenic, which I don't know if he was or not. I didn't see any of the reports of being, it being based off of it or not. But we also know that there's a long-standing history of those who have gifts as being diagnosed as schizophrenic. That said, schizophrenia is a very real mental health issue and diagnosis, and there are those that very validly have it that are not awake with their gifts. However, and especially in older days, if you had gifts, you were labeled as schizophrenic. So kind of that two-way thing. So skeptics think that the paranormal activity was invented to cope with Philip's illicit activity as a form of psychological coping mechanism by the family. So that kind of got dismissed that way by skeptics. Now, as far as Ed and Lorraine Warren goes, they claim to have arranged for an exorcism, but have never given any substantiating evidence in support of this being done. Apparently, during an interview, Ed called the priest who performed it Father A to protect confidentiality. When pressed for detail, Ed was said to have said in response, like he got defensive, saying, quote, Father A, that's the name I give you. I don't have to give you anything. Meaning, like, I'm not going to tell you anything, so be glad I gave you that. Which is true. He didn't have to even say Father A. They claimed evidence of the exorcism could have been gotten from the chancellery, which, like their local Roman Catholic Archdiocese of Hartford, Connecticut, who they reported that no sanctioned exorcism rite had taken place there. But then again, that's why I drink, right? It may be, or because he was a male, and or it could have even triggered the onset of schizophrenia in him. Who knows? He was a teenager. Again, poltergeist activity stuff tends to kind of be centered on or focused with, at least starting with teenagers or prepubescent age children. So the Roman Catholic Archdiocese of Hartford, Connecticut, reported that they did not sanction an exorcism rite to be taken place on the property. Then again, that said, I have read in different situations, like a plausible denial kind of thing, where they don't want to have their name associated with something. So to avoid any sort of scandal, they just say, yeah, it never happened. So we don't know if that's accurate or not, but other than Ed and Lorraine never produced any hardcore evidence in support of it having happened. So it seems this, I read it already. So in interviews, Ed apparently often came across as being very defensive in nature and could be kind of, aggressive over the validity of his claims, which detracted from it being accepted in many critics' eyes. Like, what does he have to be so defensive of? However, that said, if you are constantly called out and disbelieved, that's going to ride a nerve eventually at some point or another. You're going to get tired of having to, prove it to the 10th degree to even those who still, after seeing evidence, are going to deny it anyway, most likely. So, it's satisfying a morbid curiosity people have in most cases. They're just curious or nosy about it, so they want to see evidence of it, of course, because they're curious, whatever. But that's, it's just like anybody who, say, if you walk into work, you're on crutches and a cast, they're not so much concerned about, oh my God, you broke your leg, are you okay? Is, hey, what happened? Because they're nosy and they want to know juicy details of how something happened. So it's like that. At least I think so. So whilst many criticize the validity of the case, many still believe that something happened there. The author Gorton claims that when he took concerns to the Warrens about the randomness of Carmen and Al's statements, that he was told by Ed to, quote, just use what works, make up the rest, make it up and make it scary, he recalls. So again, Ed's not here to defend himself, but this is what the author said Ed told him. Hearsay, John Zaffis, who many of us know, that's Ed and Lorraine's nephew, and he was really trained by them. He kind of grew up around that and being allowed to follow them on investigations and had his own role to play. So he said he also participated in that 9-week investigation in the home, and that he reportedly was so scared by what he had witnessed. He said the temperature of the room, I didn't write it out, but from memory, what I read, that like the temperature in the room dropped dramatically, and then he saw some being on the stairs that didn't look normal or happy, healthy, kind of scary. And then I think it touched him, which he was so freaked out over what he had experienced and witnessed. He refused at one point to even return for several days after the incident. So, whatever the truth is, I guess it's going to be a matter of opinion more than anything else. We can't with 100% certainty, but we saw the same thing happen in the Amityville horror story, if you remember correctly. And then Lorraine had allegedly, well, they did investigate that as well, but they went through the same kind of stuff in the aftermath of that. Everyone doubting the validity of the story, no one can get their story straight, doubting the hauntings, etc. And so, I think it's part of the territory. I think if it were to happen in more recent times, there probably would be a little less doubt, because the overall culture has become much more educated and aware of it through all the different paranormal shows out there and so forth, that people, while still having the morbid nosy curiosity about stuff, and for those who think that shows like Ghost Adventures is the end all be all of being an investigator, which it's not, it's Hollywoodized. This they don't have the knowledge to make an assessment on, in my opinion. There's people you could show they documented evidence and they still wouldn't believe you. Yeah, that's what I was saying a minute ago, Nancy, was that even had they come up with evidence, the naysayers are still going to say it's invalid. So there's always going to be those people out there. So people who had lived in that home since then, none of them, just like in the Amityville horror haunting, none of them followed up by reporting they had experienced any activity at all. But to me, I'm kind of thinking same thing with the people who live there, that they don't want a media circus happening in their house and a constant stream of gawkers driving by their house at all hours, or even committing vandalism, whatever, in order to take a closer look at the property, etc. So Caesar, no, just tonight it ever happened. So, or hey, there's nothing here now if there was. So, they want to live a quiet life. I get it. So nobody has reported anything after that. So what do you guys think as far as the evidence goes? Do you think that it was all a big hoax, or that something happened even though we don't know what, or you believe the reports? I have a lot of paranormal activity in my home, and when I tell friends, they always want to come over and see, as if I can just conjure them up. Yeah, exactly. And again, it's like a gawking curiosity more than not. It's no different than if I get like a past life connection on somebody. I really look for myself, and those who want to know are curious, but it's just a passing curiosity. I bet they stay out of the basement. I wouldn't be surprised. Karen said, I didn't get to hear the whole show, so I have no clue. Nancy said, I think it happened. I think something happened, said Sandy. Karen, did you ever see the movie The Haunting in Connecticut? That was based off of this story, in case you did. So whilst you didn't hear the whole beginning of it, like the real life story of it, you get the sense of it through the movie of what took place. So it's going to be a person's individual. Yes, you have. Okay, so that's what this is. This is the real life story of what took place. Sandy says she's not sure what, but definitely something. Yeah, that's why I figured you probably had seen the movie, and so that was based off of the experiences. So, I think something happened too, and even if not everything they reported took place, yeah, I think something happened, because, think about it. Sure, it's going to bring you a media attention or your 15 minutes of fame to go publicly stating, hey, I'm experiencing this, but who really wants to sign up for all of those who are going to come at you thinking you're a nut job because of it? Now, I did see I caught part of a documentary about it once, and they were interviewing Carmen off and on throughout whatever it was. And I don't know if it's the documentary that was mentioned in the research, or if there's more than one out there, but whichever one I saw was kind of questioning Carmen's mental health status because of her having gone on to become kind of a spiritual teacher of sorts and practice Reiki and things like that. That didn't happen until after all of this took place. So hey, look, she's in that job now, so that proves it. I don't think one has anything to do with the other. If anything, maybe having had those experiences open her mind up that, yeah, this stuff is out there and it's real. And that kind of led her to learn more and, eat up all she could gain research wise off of it to experience more, to gain an understanding to help others who might be going through something similar. So I don't look at her as like some new agey freak with it as much as it opened her up to gain more wisdom and help others. That's it. So everyone's going to take a stand on it. It's one of those things. And either you're a diehard skeptic or you're not. It's, yeah. Or again, it's something happened. That's what I'm thinking too, Lori, that it opened her up to the possibilities, because previously, at least in the movies, it's always shown that she was very skeptical herself and a very religious person. So there's, those things didn't just happen to everybody or have those experiences until she did have them. And then it's kind of like, oh crap, my son was right, and this exists. I've grounded myself very good over the last few years. I used to have quite frequent visitors that would come and sit on my bed, or I could hear them, and they would ask for help. I'm not trained in that, so I did not know what to do. So I just totally grounded myself. Well, grounding doesn't have to be a shutting off of the gifts. Grounding is more just setting your energy, cleansing it for one, but also to help draw up the earth energies to help heal you and make you stronger and more balanced overall. It's not a protection thing per se. I'm a skeptical believer, says Sandy, only skeptical because it hasn't happened to me. But you have had your own experiences that you found quite valid and scary, right? Like that mirror incident that you told us about a long time ago. So that stuff can happen for whatever reason. So, whilst I wasn't there, I don't question or I don't doubt that something happened to them, even if it wasn't quite as expansive as they say. It's something they went through something. Yeah, so like that's how I view it anyway, is that you can have stuff happen and may not be of the same kind of, you hang on to your personality as an entity when you cross over, like your core foundation of who you are as a person. That doesn't change. So if you're a jerk in life or a mean person in life, you can hang on to that on the other side too and be a mean person in the afterlife, or dangerous or whatever. So, if you're a happy-go-lucky person, well, that's your core of who you are. That's going to stay with you. I always try to find logical explanations first. Right, and that's what we talked about in the last story with parapsychologists, and that they always try to find a logical explanation for why it could be happening. And I always rule that stuff out too. I think a good investigator does look at that at least. And I've done investigations before as well. And even with people who contact me for assistance in clearing their homes, one of the first things I'm assessing is, are they of sound mind and that don't have any mental health issues? Because I have also experienced somebody who was absolutely sure that they were being haunted by demons and had all these demons attached to them, and they were schizophrenic, in my opinion. So, and had then come to find out at the end of the discussion, she finally opened up that, yeah, she had a long history of being hospitalized, and that was always the given diagnosis was schizophrenia. So my assessment of her was correct. So yeah, you got to rule out some of that stuff first. Keyword try. Yeah, no, you can't always find a logical explanation for stuff, but yes, it's important to rule out, if just to make sure, it's not that, it can't be that, or what about this, and find alternate explanations if possible. But no, it's not always possible. So anyway, there you have it, my lovelies, both Danny's bed and the haunting in Connecticut stories. Now, I do have a couple questions, not related really. My sis just replied to my comment. Hi, sis. Give her a shout out my show. A lot of times she forgets that it's Monday and to come in. Thank you, Sandy. Now, with regards to okay, so of course we know we lost all the archived shows and stuff. And you also have heard me say a number of times, I still have all my notebooks and things. Now, I know the first year of Willows been where the network I started out on, it would, even though there was nobody scheduled after me, it would ride her nerves if my show lasted longer than an hour. So I kind of learned to time them to that, but research can always be added to the topic if need be. But my question to you guys is, thank you, everybody, is do you want me to start kind of offering those as topics to vote on to kind of reinstate some of those archives now that we're under the Soma Fusion umbrella? Then, it would be protected and saved on YouTube, etc., and with, Katie's archives. So they're always, even if something should, knock on wood, happen with the group, let's not have it happen with the group, but should it ever, and we lose the archives again, then if we recover them, it's going to reinstate those as an archive that you can still go somewhere to reference them if you want it. My kids have stories they have totally experienced our ghosts. Yeah, oh yeah, no, I have in every place I've lived too. Sounds good. Okay, so I almost pulled all my notebooks for tonight to start kind of at least throwing some out there on a table, but I want to make sure that's what you guys, a direction you want to go in first. Now, here and there, I may have redone a topic or two, or like if I've been laid up from a hand surgery or something and I couldn't do all the writing involved, I would do over a topic covered in Willow's Wisp, which was, I did that back in the first year of Willow's been, first year and a half of it. And then from there, I ended that show and came just to do this one. So the majority of those I did in that group have also been covered in here, but there may be a few who haven't. So I can start, pulling out the notebooks and adding them onto the list to vote on and see what you guys want. And then, or just start it. I don't have the number though, but I didn't used to date my notebooks for some unknown reason. I just would write out the notes and that's it. Now I date them and I number the episode numbers, but back then I didn't. So I don't know. I know what my very first notebook was because it's so different from what I use now. However, they're all there. There's like 10 of them or something. Doesn't matter to me. Boom shakalaka. Still new ones too. Yeah, and there are those who have joined the group after all that happened last year who, never got to experience the archives to know what has been covered before. So that's why I figured I'd offer it. And sometimes it can be tough to come up with topics we haven't covered yet because, at least 170 shows that I've done so far and 170 topics, that's a pretty expansive list. So sometimes it's hard to come up with original ones that we haven't done yet. So I figured that might call it over. And Karen is actually the one that gave me the idea with that. She had asked about the Island of the Dolls and sent me a piece on it. I was like, yeah, we covered that already, but I can put it on the list and see what everybody thinks. And that led me to saying, we can just in general, we can start going them over again. You're okay with anything? Yeah, I think most of you are okay with whatever. That it's more about getting together and hanging out than it is the topic we talk about. I could talk about, give a tutorial on how to pick your nose, and you probably would be good with it. Not an offense to anybody, but like, it's not about the topic per se. So, so what we have on the table as of right now, we have the golf tip line mystery, which is that weird phone tip line thingy that unexplained things would happen when people would call it. It's not active now. It's just a standard phone line that goes. I think the number was reassigned to another company or something since it took place, but it was kind of like an unexplained thing that happened at the time with it. Without giving too much away, getting my passport just to go to the Island of Dolls. Yeah, it would be awesome to experience that. Let's go back to the basics. So we also had Krampus on the table, and then the Island of the Dolls. But again, next week, I'll just start bringing out the notebooks and, or writing out a few of the past topics, and we'll vote on those. So whichever. So do you guys want either Krampus the golf tip line mystery, or just go ahead and like pull the notebooks next week in my choice, or do Island of the Dolls. I do remember the Island of the Dolls was a shorter-ish show, only about an hour, but you know, Krampus, Krampus, Krampus. 'Tis the season after all, so we got 2 for that. Get a booger tangling, right? Yeah, 'tis the Krampusy season here. But my Sudafed's kicked in, so that's a good thing. I'm not running anymore. Krampus is certainly a timely choice, but I'm good with anything. Krampus and my choice, and Marianne says dolls. Krampus, Krampus. Krampus and the dolls. You choose whatever's easiest for me. My choice, my choice. Krampus and dolls. Those would be short, I think. I've never researched Krampus to know just, you know, I mean, I would kind of think it would be on the shorter side too. While I'm thinking of it is, you know, it is just one story type of thing. It might be represented in different countries or something to present it that way, but it's not going to be a super long show. So, I mean, I could even possibly tag team the topics because the Island of the Dolls notes are already done. So just transition to the Krampus and then throw in the Island of the Dolls based on the notes I have. Because like I said, the events that inspired the Island of the Dolls creation happened, like almost 200 years ago now. So it's just kind of taken off since then. Krampus also has the female version of Krampus. I've not seen that one, I don't think. All right, so we can do that then. I will just combine, and we'll do half C like this one. Like I said, this was just because I didn't realize there was so little information out there about Danny's bed because of it comes from a book, and they're not going to give you the entire book, online somewhere and ruin the person's sales or whatever. But 8 pages of a show would be about 15 minutes. So I knew that wouldn't go over well. All right, so let's see, draw a little doojigy here so I know both. There we go. All righty, so then that'll be on the 20th of next week, Monday, 8 o'clock, as always, Eastern time. And book group, now I'm debating about this. So those in book group anyway already know about this. I'm scheduled to have a bone marrow biopsy done on the 21st, which is Tuesday of next week. And then book group normally happens Wednesday on the 22nd. But I'm wondering, am I going to be okay enough to stay sitting in the same position for 5 hours for book group the day after? Probably not wanting to. I would think I would be pretty uncomfortable. So I'm kind of leaning towards, if you guys are good with it, moving next week's book group to Friday also, like this past week, just because of the procedure and stuff, that I just think I would probably be, because they take the biopsy from my hip bone, and obviously that you kind of need that to sit on, or to sit up in the same spot for so long. Probably would be uncomfortable, I'm thinking, and I don't want that to, get started with it and then have it be too much. So given by Friday, I'm guessing I might be okay by then to, be over it enough to be all right, sit up for a while and not be uncomfortable. So why don't we aim for Friday then? I figured you guys would be cool with it, but just want to double check. So let me make a note, book group here. Well, that's why I'm throwing it out there, because like I said, from everybody I've talked to, that yes, it is a painful procedure. You are sore for a good couple days afterward. And that's what the doctor said as well, that, you're going to be sore for a couple days. So to sit up in the same position for 5 hours probably would be a bit much, I'm thinking. So no, I always do an event notice, same as I do for the show. And so as long as y'all check your notifications, you'll be fine. Yeah, no, that's why I'm thinking it might be a bit much. But we did start a book, so I'll throw it out there to everybody so y'all know what we're starting anyway. We just literally read the foreword last week, and that's it. So I haven't started chapter 1 yet. It is The Complete Guide to Psychic Development, 100 Ways to Tap into Your Psychic Potential by Cassandra Eason. And that's a book of mine that I had on hand and surprisingly never read. I think I don't know, bought it because it was on sale or something and stuck it on my bookcase and never read it because it wasn't even creased yet from reading. So I don't think I've read it yet. So that's what we are starting on, and I will take a photo of it to put with the event notice for that as well. So that's on the 21st, Chris, which is next Tuesday. No, you didn't miss anything, Sandy. We literally just read the foreword, which was more about like identifying what psychic powers are and the person's view of mixing, like personal magic with psychic powers and earth energies and stuff. And so, yeah. So, yeah, the test is like, it's going to be a most of the day type of thing because it's over an hour away from me to get to the hospital and over an hour back, of course. And then if they leave me in recovery for a couple hours, and then by the time they get done prepping me and all that garbage, it's going to be freaking dark by the time I get home. So, oh, you're also having a biopsy done as well, Renee? Is it also a bone marrow biopsy or just like something else? Yes, Friday is Christmas Eve. I just realized that. Well, yeah, I don't know yet, Lori. That's what they're doing the test for, is to determine that of what's going on, rule out stuff. It is by Cassandra Eason. Last name is Eason. First name Cassandra, traditional spelling. You won't be able to. No, I get it. You're like, a doctor's appointment. Gotcha. I didn't realize actually it was Christmas Eve on Friday, but so good point. Some of you may be doing like the family thing, and that's understandable. So yeah, no, they just want to, had some unusual test results come back with blood work, and they just want to rule out that the bigger things. I'm not worried. Not really. Yeah, that's what I said. I didn't realize it was Christmas Eve when I suggested it. If y'all want to skip book group next week too, we could do that. It's your book group too, so your call to make. This Friday is the 17th. Yeah, this would be for next week. Did I say it was this week? Yeah, no, my test is on the 21st, so that's for the following week. Be out of town Christmas Eve. Okay, well, actually, let me think. Okay, yeah, so it'll be up to you guys, and it doesn't have to be on a Friday either. That was just like a suggestion. I'm open typically. We normally have our normally scheduled book group on Wednesday nights. So that's the day after my test. I'm probably not going to want to sit that long. So probably like that would leave Saturday as the other option, which would be Christmas, but usually nighttime by Christmas Day, stuff's done anyway, and you're just kind of whooped out. Yeah, no, I am. I don't, like I said, I'm not worried about it being something big. I just think that it's, they want to rule out stuff. I think it's more of a pain in the ass to get there and back again versus going through it than I am worried about what they're going to find. My healing nest will be doing nothing. Show up at one of the many invites I got from strangers in my town. Yeah, Christmas is just, other than Yule, it's just another day for me as well. Because there's nobody, I don't have anybody around me to do anything with anyway. So I don't even have any invites from strangers in my town, but they just had said, the doctor just said that I'd be sore for a couple days afterward to take it easy. So, I've got my walker as far as getting around the house or whatever as I need to, but I was just more thinking I'm not going to want to sit the next day. Literal pain in the ass. Yeah. So I was going to probably have him do it on my right hip and then avoid the tender point, of course, from the fibro for the test. Hopefully, I'm hoping they can, because that would suck exponentially for them if I could at all feel it of them going in, or even in the aftermath, having that pain be in the same area as the tender point would be really bad. I asked if any restaurants open on Christmas on town page, and the invites came flooding in. I'm okay with any day when it is 8 p.m. and after through December. Cool. Well, like I said, we can always do like Christmas Day night as well on the 25th. That doesn't matter to me because, like I said, by then most people's celebration stuff is over with anyway. So, saying lots of healing vibes your way and much love to everyone. Thank you. I appreciate that, Crystalina. And thank you for coming also tonight. And I hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, so I mean, it's fudgeable, you know. Next, if we didn't do it Friday, next week it could be Saturday. That's fine by me either way. And I get it. If those who can't make it would have family obligations Christmas Eve night. So I get it. So we'll figure it out, but or talk more about it in book group this week. So as of right now, it's on Wednesday night for this week for book group. So day after tomorrow. Nothing scheduled. So hopefully the Facebook goddess and gods will work, and messenger chat rooms will be fine. They were okay last week, so on Friday when we did them. So yeah, everybody's welcome. Whatever, whoever wants to come can. So yeah, that's a plan. All right, guys. Well, then let's call it a night, and we can always play around more with the date for the following week during book group this week. So lots of love to all of you, and thank you all for coming and hanging out for going on 2 hours. I'm just going to dinner on Christmas and chugging wine. Hey, No, it was great seeing you again, Natalie, and I'm glad you're feeling well enough to come. And even if you're not 100%, you're good enough to be hanging out with our Mowgli asses. So love and light to everybody. Have a wonderful evening and the rest of the week. If I don't see you in book group, for those who don't attend or don't want to or whatever, have something going on, it's okay. I never ever have an issue if someone can't make it to something I'm doing. Life happens. I get it. So it's all good. So love to everybody. Have a wonderful rest of the night, guys. I love you. Good night.